It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. I'm glad to see so many of you out there this morning on our website. And that's great news. I see you guys are spread out all over the country. Sanford, Maine? Lebanon. Sounds like Maine or upstate Vermont or something. Clarksville, I see Lincoln, Nebraska out there. Kayenta, I'm not sure where that is. Glen Rose, I see folks all over the country. I see guys up there by Michigan and Chicago, down by Florida, all out there in Texas, out in the Southwest. I see California out there. Glad to have you on board. You know, we took the day off yesterday because it was Memorial Day, and frankly, I do this show 5 days a week, and I almost never get a break. So I took the lead and took the day off, and glad that I did that. I needed a break. Thanks for riding with us today. We're going to cover a number of different issues this morning, including the professor who now admits that he developed and created, in concert with other knuckleheads, but he created and developed Common Core as an apology to his white privilege. And I kid you not. I'm going to give it to you in his own words. I mean, that is disturbing. He admits that he helped write Common Core to atone for white male privilege. I have been given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn, he says. Wow. Hey, thanks for making sure that the rest of us are atoning for your mistake. I mean, where does he get off putting the nation in a position of apology and atonement for something that he feels guilty about because of his own mental sickness and disease? Our second topic is going to be the IRS has now come out and they've made the statement that they're going to block employers from being able to essentially kick you off as a worker into the healthcare exchanges, which was the plan, of course, of most employers. They were looking at this and saying, hey, there's no way we're going to bounce this thing from a couple of $1,000s a year we contribute to every employee to being forced to give everybody a health plan. So what we're going to do is just pay the penalty and kick them off, or we're just going to give them an allowance and let them go do what they have to do. Well, the IRS has come out to stop that. And the reason they have is because the Obama administration cannot allow the entire nation to see what a disaster Obamacare really will be when literally millions upon millions more Americans are kicked off their health insurance plans under their jobs. That would be the final straw in the death spiral that would cause this thing to go down and crater in like a test flight on a jet that has no wings. Our third topic, White House points out that the CIA, or I shouldn't say they point out, others pointed out that the CIA totally blew it, or the White House totally blew it and exposed the head of station for the CIA in Afghanistan. Talk about an inept flub. Now they're trying to cover it up. And then our third and final, and we're going to also talk about the fact that Karzai, the penny nickel anti-tyrant over there in Afghanistan, has dissed Obama and refuses to meet with him while he snuck over there for a Memorial Day photo op, basically. And then I'm going to talk to you about something unique, and I think this is a program which everybody can get behind. There's a doctor who's posted an article up on our website, on our Facebook page, about how he is going to take matters into his own hands, but in a good way. Here's what he has to say. It's called Stone Oak Eye Clinic, and he says, if you are a South Texas veteran who cannot access the VA for needed eye surgery or ophthalmic or visual problems, friend me on Facebook and message me, or call my office at 210-490-6759, or contact me at stoneoakeyes.com. I cannot sit by while our brave men and women lose vision, stroke, or worse, waiting on some secret list. This is on my heart. I'm not worthy, but I'm humbled to care for you great Americans. I got to tell you, folks, there is a man of honor and integrity. There's a man of great courage and patriotism and fortitude. And I tell you, this is a message and an example that every other American can get behind, irrespective of what you do, irrespective of what your job is, who you work for, what company or business you run. There's no reason why we cannot step forward and do what the VA has completely, and the federal government has completely abdicated their responsibility towards our vets in their duty and obligation. He goes on to say, I don't know the extent of the access problem in South Texas, but I'll just start and end each clinic serving a vet who cannot get the medical care they need at the VA. I can see someone at 7:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. Just let me know. I believe in the Hippocratic Oath and that all patient info is 100% sacred and private. We got this in honor of those who went before us. Happy Memorial Day. Folks, I got to tell you, that's mind-blowing to me. All right, let's get into our first topic, because this is an issue that we're gonna gather and learn more about this as we go forward this morning. A couple of quick news blurbs I don't want to leave out before we get into this Common Core issue. Greenwald, who was exposing the Snowden stuff, has come out, and he's going to lever a bombshell on the world. And we haven't seen it yet, so I'm just going to give you the quick down and dirty on it. But basically, apparently he has the names of the victims of surveillance, and he's going to release them. Glenn Greenwald, the journalist who received the trove of documents from Edward Snowden, told the Sunday Times that Snowden's legacy would be shaped in large part by this, quote, finishing piece, which is still to come. He promises that it will be the biggest revelation from nearly 2 million classified files. His plan is to publish the names of everyone that has been in the United States for an 11-month period. I'm sorry. Let me start that again. His plan is to publish the names, and of course, that is going to create all kinds of havoc. But these are the folks that are essentially the ones who were surveilled. He says one of the big questions when it comes to domestic spying is, who have been the NSA's specific targets? Are they political critics and dissidents and activists? Are they genuinely people that we'd regard as terrorists? He says, as with a fireworks show, you want to save the best for last. The last one is the one where the sky is all covered in spectacular multicolored hue. We don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know whether this is going to be a long list, a short list, a brief list, whether it's going to include the names of average individuals, whether it's going to include names of people that they've been monitoring who are members of the press, the media, whether it's going to have the names of individuals within the government themselves. We don't know. But I got to tell you, it's noteworthy and it's newsworthy. There is also a law which was rewritten by the government that allows them to read email and cloud-stored data that's over 6 months old, and they claim without a search warrant. Now, a number of the technology companies have come out and started fighting about this. These are the companies that offer these cloud storage services. They're trade associations and some lobbying groups, and they're pressing Congress to tighten these laws up because essentially the Congress took the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and which is about a 30-year-old law. That's the excuse they've been using to monitor and violate American individuals' privacy. And what they've done is, in typical fashion, they rewrote it to meet and hit their own ends. So essentially, they have done what they call a redefinition, or they go back in and they look at it and they figure out, okay, where can we make a determination that this law can be violated in some way by a legal definition that we loosen up. And that's essentially what they've done. All right. Here's the issue with this guy, this professor, who admits that he helped write Common Core to atone for white male privilege. Folks, when you hear this, you're going to be stunned. This is from Campus Reform, and they've provided a video that shows this college professor who helped to write Common Core education standards. And in it, he admits that he helped write the standards, in essence, to atone for his white male privilege. Wait until you hear what the crowd has to say when he says that. This is Granite State College professor David Pook, P-O-O-K, which I think should be, the P should be removed and the K should be inserted there, so it's David Kook. He's speaking in favor of Common Core at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics on Monday. This is last Monday, obviously. He says he was part of writing the standards and gives a very curious reason as to why. First off, you have to hear the guy who introduces he's another pinhead at the table, but wait until you hear what these people have to say, because it's actually unforgivable. Really.
Every teacher that's using it basically is saying this is inspiring a closer and more engaged student body. So the people that are actually using it like it. And again, in terms of the local control, you still have local control. So if you want higher standards, if that is your genuine point, then you can go ahead and do the higher standard in the process.
Okay, so this is the first guy, and he's about to introduce Pook. And he's basically stating that everybody who tries Common Core likes it. And, this is the same mantra we hear about 90% of the country wants gun control. It's an absolute flat-out lie. And this stuff is right out of Goebbels' book. If you say the lie big enough, long enough, and often enough, everybody will believe it. I'm sick and tired of liars. And this stupid idiot actually has the nerve to try to, feed this kind of propaganda as if it's truth. He should be ashamed of himself. I apologize for the quality of this, but this thing was filmed, from in the middle of an audience, so there's a lot of hissing and background noise. But here comes David Pook.
Was indeed totally transparent, and I'm going to defer now to David and Bill.
Transparent, my foot.
I'm not paid to be here either. I'm just an interested teacher who helped write the standards. And the reason why I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I'm given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn. And as a result, I think it's really important that all...
So you hear the crowd boo him in the background, and some jerk up on the podium says, "Hey," as if they're all dogs to be brought to heel, right? This makes me sick. I want to vomit when I hear this guy.
All kids get an equal opportunity to learn how to read. And I think I had decided advantages as a result of who I was, not being any choice of mine. And when I walk into places like Roberto Clemente High School on the west side of Chicago, I think it's really important that those kids learn how to read just as well as I had the opportunity to read. And in creating an equitable educational opportunity for all kids, I think this is actually the greatest lesson we can teach our kids.
You see, this maladjusted piece of human excrement actually has the nerve to ignore the fact that we are spending $29,000 a year, which I talked to you about a week and a half ago, on every student in the nation. And at $29,000 a year, 80% of them can't read. But that's not the fault of Common. That's not a solution based upon bringing or a reason to bring Common Core in as a solution. The true solution is to go back to what we already know and was tried and true and worked in the past. We didn't always have an 80% failure to live rate. We didn't always have an 80% failure to be able to add 2 and 2. We didn't always have in this country a failure to be able to read by 80% of the students. So why do we have it now? We have it now because every one of these teachers, number one, and every student or every teachers union in every school system is insistent upon putting into play these systems and processes that turn your child into an automaton. They're not interested in actually teaching what really matters. They're interested in teaching social justice, not equal justice. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the problem. This is not about social justice. This is about equal justice. And I'm getting tired of hearing that if we just make everybody equal socially, everyone will be equally capable. That's not true. It doesn't. Look, you've got millions of children who are in schools today that don't want to learn. And there's nothing that you can do to make them learn, any more than you can make a heroin addict stop shooting a needle into his arm if he doesn't want to, or a smoker to quit smoking, or an alcoholic to quit drinking, or a politician to stop lying. You see, they either want to or it won't matter. And this is the same nonsense that we've been dealing with now for generations, as we've seen our capabilities in education descend to the point where we're dragging every student down to the lowest common denominator. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's right. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's in the best interest of your student. What it has everything to do with is how they can get your child to become a little automaton robot that will do exactly as he's told, not question anything. He will be emasculated, and in the case of your sons, they are being feminized and emasculated, told you can't raise your voice, you can't argue, you cannot fight back or push back against anything that you disagree with. I got to tell you, folks, that is nothing but brainwashing nonsense. You know, the human race is a race that is intended to conflict. This argument that, you should always solve everything with talking, that's great as long as everyone's solving everything with talking. But the tyrants who are stealing your child's future, they are not using talk. They are using actions. And sitting there trying to plead with a bully while he's beating you is absolutely stupid. This piece of crap, the reason I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I am given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn. I think it's really important that all kids get an equal opportunity to learn how to read, just as well as I had the opportunity to read. Apparently, he failed grammar. And in creating an equitable education opportunity for all kids, I think this is actually the greatest lesson we can teach our kids. Now, the greatest lesson we can teach our kids is that when they hear someone like you come into the room, they run the other way like you have leprosy and the bubonic plague all together at one time. That's the truth, America. And everything else that these people try to teach you is an absolute propagandic lie. You need to get your kids out of school or make sure your schools will reject Common Core and go back to what we knew. You ever see that test out there that shows what a civics test was like back in the 30s and the 40s? Most Americans can't pass it today. In fact, they just proved it the other day when that fella, I can't think of what his name is, went out there with a phone and a microphone and a camera, and he asked the same questions that immigrants are asked when they pledge allegiance to this country and swear an oath to be a loyal citizen. Guess what? Less than 50% could pass the test. They can't even tell you how many senators there are in the Senate. They can't tell you who the president and the vice president are. These are people who live here. The truth is, our country is almost not worth saving. Almost. And I got to tell you, for those of you parents out there who have been heard to say, you know, I'll do anything for my kid. I'd die to save my kid and protect my child. I'd fight through hell and back to. Okay, guess what? I'm putting a direct and open challenge to you. I'm calling you out. Start doing it instead of talking about it. Because right now, your kid's life, your kid's spirit, your kid's mind, and your kid's heart are under direct threat. All right, we're going to take a break. Before we do, there's two things you need to know about. One is American Resume Service has graciously agreed to help support this program by offering their $200 resume development package to any individual who needs assistance in getting a job. They take your existing resume, they tear it completely apart, they spend some time with you to find out exactly where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and then help rewrite the resume to best suit your job interviews and the application of what you're trying to accomplish in this job that you're looking for. They are offering this $200 package for 50% off only to America's Voice Now listeners, and in addition to that, they are then taking that same $100 and they're donating 100% of that to America's Voice Now so that we can continue to keep this program on the air. There's 20 packages that are available that will generate an opportunity for you to get out there with a resume that is qualified and well-written and well-designed so that you will show the best light. Remember that a resume only gets you the interview. And if you don't have one of those done well, then more often than not, you never even get to the interview part. And at the same point in time, it will generate revenue that will help keep this program on the air. I encourage you to participate. You can go to American Resume Service. That's AmericanResumeService.com, 417-264-2486, or you can email them at info@AmericanResumeService.com. Make sure that you tell them that Mike from America's Voice Now sent you over, because that's how you qualify for the 50% discount. All right, want you to make sure that you participate with our friends over at Battery Station. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. They are a strong and avid supporter of this program and have been for many, many years. You want to help yourself and your fellow patriots? Patronize those people who think like you and put their money where their mouth is. You can do that by going to the folks over at Battery Station at batterystation.com. You can call them at 417-257-7799. There's a ton of products they carry that aren't on their website, but they'll be more than happy to help you out. And while you're at it, you can swing by and see AtlasSurvivalShelters.com. That's AtlasSurvivalShelters.com. In addition, if you're looking for some great products that you can get, you can go to SurvivalByPreparedness.com. That's SurvivalByPreparedness.com. You can also go to SpringCreekBeef.com. That's SpringCreekBeef.com. Both those companies offer you 100% all-natural, grass-fed beef, no hormones, no shots, no nothing, just no grain, and basically just 100% grass-fed beef like we've always grown in this country. And it's good for you, and they ship around the nation. So help yourselves out there. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. You can communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. We'll be right back. We're back. Hey, if you have an opportunity to and you'd like to chat with us, we have a new call-in line, and that'll allow you to jump on with us live here. Love to hear from you and take your calls. The telephone number is 573-453-5505. That's 573-453-5505. We're going to be talking in this segment here about the idea of the IRS who has just come out and made a statement that they're going to block employers from dumping employees into the healthcare exchanges. And the reason why they're going to do that is because they don't dare allow America to see exactly what's going on here. See, we already saw 7 million people get kicked by their employers, and now they're concerned that as the elections come up in November, there would be literally tens of millions kicked off. In fact, we know what the estimates were. The estimates were coming in saying anywhere between 40 and 70 million Americans were going to find themselves kicked off their employer health program. Well, in order to save their butts, the Democrats couldn't possibly let that happen just before the election because they'd be roundly trounced. And so the PR monsters and manipulators are at work, and they're out there trying to manipulate you and propagandize you. The IRS is the arm that's doing that, and they're going to bar employers from dumping the workers into healthcare exchanges. Now, this is off the New York Times, and so, one, you got to read it with a grain of salt, but two, you also have to recognize that even some of these mainstream Ministry of Propaganda rags and programs that are out there are starting to get the message that the guy they've been backing and the guy they've been supporting is actually not defendable. I mean, even they have to recognize that at some point in time, what he's doing is not defensible from the perspective of national benefit, national security. So let's understand what this argument says, or this article says. Excuse me. Many employers thought they could shift healthcare costs for their employees to the government by sending their employees to a health insurance exchange with a tax-free contribution of cash to help pay the premiums. But yesterday, the Obama administration squelched the idea in a brand new ruling. Here we go again with the Banana Republic dictatorship nonsense, right? Soon as they find out that there's a hole in the dike, they just run over there and they plug it. Now, the problem is that they have no authority to do that. They have no legislative authority to do that. They cannot make law, and everybody knows it. Why America, and Congress in particular, and the media are sitting there and allowing this administration to operate in such a lawless manner and not hold them accountable for it and inform America so that Americans could stand up and stop it is beyond my comprehension. But that's exactly what they're doing. They squelched the idea in a new ruling, and they're saying that these arrangements would not satisfy the health care law. There's no health care law. There's basically, let me tell you what the health care law is. It's a set of rules that are made up by people as they're going along. That's exactly what they are. There's a set of rules that they're making up as they go along, and they're manipulating these rules to cover any incident that comes up that may threaten their claim to power. See, the truth of the matter is, folks, this is a 2,000-page bill when it was passed, and it's now a 25,000-page list of rules. Unlike our Constitution, which was written on 4 pages in its original concept. You know why? You know why the Constitution was so small? Because it was meant to have a small federal government. It was meant to say, this entity that we're creating is only supposed to have a very, very, very limited scope. And what we're dealing with right now is treason. Treason because these people and the government itself has taken an oath to preserve and protect the Constitution. And it has done everything in its power to subvert that truth, to subvert that Constitution, and to enslave you. The employers, wait until you hear what the penalty is, up to $36,500 a year for every employee they dump into the individual marketplace. Now, if you recall, the original claim was that they were going to be able to get away with a $2,000 fine per employee. And so the average employer looked at that and said, okay, So we can pay $5,000 or $6,000 or $8,000 or whatever it's going to cost us to provide health insurance for these people. Or we can pay $2,000 penalty and wash our hands of the whole mess. Then we just step back and do what we have to do. We take the $2,000 per employee, and we consider that a cost of doing business. And we're going to get a tax write-off for it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. That's what the argument was then. What's the argument going to be now? You see, this administration is burning the candle at both ends. Because on one hand, they're relying upon employers to maintain a health marketplace that's been in place for generations. On the second hand, they are trouncing them publicly, saying, they're greedy and, they're the problem and they're throwing big business under the bus. They can't have it both ways. They trounce Wall Street, but then they go right over to Wall Street right after they've just thrown them under the bus publicly, and they get down on their hands and knees and they lick their boots and beg them for money. Billions upon billions of it. Do you know that there's about $4 billion a year spent in lobbying? For what, 535 people in Congress? 535 pieces of human excrement divvy up almost $4 billion a year. Think about that. Look how cheap they sold you out. Look how cheap they've sold you out. I mean, the 30 pieces of silver Judas Iscariot got 2,000 years ago was worth more. This ruling by the IRS, who just has they have no constitutional authority to exist. It's an agency that was created out of the whole cloth of a lie by the federal government. Remember, just because they make a law doesn't make it legal. I mean, it was legal to own slaves. It was legal for them to bar you and prohibit you from drinking alcohol. Doesn't make it so. Just means that those who consider themselves and those of us who believe and allow ourselves to be fooled into thinking that they're the final arbiters of the law have got you buffaloed. That's what it means. It means that you have been foolish enough to believe that which they tell you. You've been foolish enough to believe the lies, the propaganda, the manipulation that they feed you every single day. The truth is, the IRS has no authority to tax you at 30, 40, 50, 60% of your income. None whatsoever. But you allow it. If America ever wants to get free of this tyranny, it's very simple, folks. You just opt out. A national strike. Not violent. Just say, I'm done. Hands off. I'm finished. I'm going to go sit on the couch. I'm not going to pay any taxes. I'm not going to show up for work. I'm not going to buy anything. We're in a holding period until this ends. See, that's what it would take. Not a march on Washington. Because, I get it. The problem is that the march on Washington, while you're handing them your money, does no good. It can't just be a march on Washington. They ignore you anyway. They're laughing at you. They're not interested in hearing your protest. That's why they created free speech zones, for crimini's sake. You think they care? If they cared, they wouldn't have the unmitigated gall, the hubris, to create something called a free speech zone. But you can sit there and protest all you want. All you're doing is playing right into their game, right into their hands. If you really want to change this, the right way to change this is for America to say uniformly, under a united front, gay, straight, black, white, brown, I don't care what color you are, yellow, orange, pink with polka dots. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care whether you're on welfare or you're wealthy. I don't care what any of the arguments are that you're given. I don't care what any of the dividers are that you've been taught. The only solution to this problem is a unified, elbows-locked response. We are on strike. You can pass any law you want. We're ignoring them. You can try to spend money, but you're not going to tax us anymore. We're not going to work, so you can't get the work out of our employer, the tax money out of our employer. In fact, you can't get the tax money from the employer who's going to pay a tariff to ship something out or ship something in. You can't pay sales tax, or you can't collect sales tax because we're not going to buy anything. And when we don't buy anything and we don't go to work, the employer isn't selling anything either. Nothing's going to ship. There'll be no gas taxes to collect. That's it. We're on strike, and we're going to starve the beast to death. You being the beast, of course. And we're going to look you right in the eye and tell you exactly what our intent is. To starve you to death. Do we need a federal government? Absolutely we do. But we need one that's so small that a magnifying glass isn't sufficient. We need a microscope to find the federal government in your day in and day out life. That's what your 6-page Constitution called for. That's what your founders told you should be the case. And they knew this tyranny was going to run rampant because they understood human nature. They knew. They understood. They warned us. And they gave us the tools to turn it around when it did go south. They gave us the tools. They gave us the Article 5, which says when Congress becomes your betrayer, you can go around Congress. And if all else fails, you can take the country back by force if necessary. We're not there yet, but we certainly have an obligation to at least use every tool in that toolbox before we give up on the job. I get it. The tools are not perfect. It's the wrong size wrench. It's a screwdriver that's not quite the right size. It's a hammer when you really don't need a hammer. But by the same token, folks, just because it's the wrong tool doesn't mean we can't be creative and ingenious about how we use that tool. Or use those tools to fashion another tool that will do the job adequately. And in this case, we've got the solution right in front of us. And that is simply to make a new tool using the tools in our kit bag. You know what that new tool is? A massive nationwide strike. A strike. A strike that says, we're done. We're finished. We're not going to forward in any taxes. We're not going to sit here and pay sales tax. We're not going to pay gasoline taxes. We're not going to buy anything, so you won't get any sales tax. We're not going to show up at work, so our employers cannot mail in the employee taxes. We're not going to pay Social Security tax. We're just on strike. That's it. We're all going to sit down, and we're not going to move. How long do you think it would take, America? 30 days? 60? I got to tell you, what you don't realize is that as uncomfortable as that 30 or 60 days would be, as difficult as it might be to get through, I mean, I agree, and I grant you that it would not be an easy period in time. Yes, you may take the risk of, God forbid, having to go without air conditioning for a couple of weeks. You may have to go with the risk of not having a refrigerator for a week. Maybe 3, maybe 6, maybe 10. But I got to tell you, it's going to be a far better off scenario than what's going to come if we don't take control of this country again. If you think things are bad now, or you think things are going to be bad under a strike scenario, wait until these guys realize there's no alternative and there's no more hiding behind the Ministry of Propaganda and the nonsense. And that the world is going to expose the $17 trillion debt plus the $125 trillion debt that we owe for unfunded mandates, plus the $200 trillion debt in derivatives and government-backed guarantees to the corporate pigs. And I got to tell you something, folks. You're gonna wish you'd taken that 60-day vacation then. The truth is, that what we're looking at here is fingers in the dike, and it's a crumbling dam, and they know it. That's why they are coming out here, and Obama says, I don't think an employer-based system is going to be or should be replaced anytime soon. He's a liar. If he thought he could replace it without somebody or the nation rising up, he would. He knows he can't get away with it. You see, they move it along at a pace that's glacial. And they've been at this, folks, for 100 years. 100 years. Plus, more than 100. They can sit here and redefine things all they want. They can go out there and give themselves all this power. But it's only theirs until we say we've had enough. I'm not advocating that everybody grab a rifle and race for your capital. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that when you hear and you've seen the results of what's happened in the past and what has actually changed policies, procedures, what has reined in government, you already know the answer. You're just unwilling to do it. You don't have the courage to do it. You just don't have the courage. You wouldn't be able to keep a nationwide strike, even if it was only the 20 million patriots in the country. Don't forget that out of the 20 million people who would join that strike, that's half the workforce, because the other half is out of work completely. And they're sitting home while you're out there working hard all day, and they're sitting there in the air conditioning thinking how nice this is. You're afraid you're going to lose something. What you don't realize is it's already lost. You've already lost it, America. The only thing left for you to do at this point is to either go regain it or write it off as permanently lost. And that choice is yours. If you care at all about the remainder of your time, forget your kids, forget your grandchildren. Be selfish for a moment. What you think you are about to lose by saying we're going to go on a nationwide strike, but we might lose our car, we might have our house foreclosed on because we don't pay the bill. I got to tell you, you've already lost all that anyway. It's not yours in the first place. You owe it all in debt. And if this thing ever comes down, and it's not a question now of if, it's a question of when, then what are you going to do? Going to go to the bank then and say I'm on strike? They're going to say it doesn't really matter that you're on strike. Nobody's working. This is a depression that's worse than the one we had in the 20s. You have a chance to resolve this peacefully, if only you'll take it. The question is, do you have the courage of your convictions to stand up and do what you know to be right? Do you have the courage of your convictions to bring this thing to a close versus letting them bring it to a close, well planned? See, they're going to execute a plan. The question is whether or not you're going to get caught in it or you're going to derail it. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the White House has outed their own CIA head in Afghanistan and how Karzai has literally blown off the president. The president went to Afghanistan on Memorial Day for a photo op under the alleged, excuse that he was going to go over there to support the troops, who he obviously couldn't really care at all about. And while he was there, they were trying to set up a meeting between him and Karzai. Now, of course, the joke of that is that, they're trying to say, well, it was a conflict of schedules. There was this problem in scheduling, you see. Well, let me tell you something. If you buy the scheduling conflict routine, you would be naive, to put it nicely. At this level, trust me that there is no such thing as a president who makes an unannounced visit and gets rebuffed for not having called ahead. Okay? Think about it for a moment. You can look at this in the right light. Karzai is dissed the most powerful man in the world, and it exemplifies the attitude of the entire planet, whether they look upon him or look upon all of us as a nation. That piece of human trash over there, that corrupt monster, didn't diss the President of the United States. He dissed all of us. Pretty shameful. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll address that. If you'd like to give us a call, you can right after the break. The telephone number for you to call into is 573-453-5505. Write that down. It's 573-453-5505. Make sure that you have an opportunity to get over to AmericanResumeService.com. That's American Resume Service. They have graciously agreed to help support America's Voice Now by offering their $200 resume package to anyone from America's Voice Now as a listener here for $100. And then they're going to donate the whole $100 to America's Voice Now. If you're in need of a resume because you're trying to either find a job or maybe improve on the one you have, then you can get to AmericanResumeService.com. You can also call them at 417-264-2486. That's 417-264-2486. You can also catch them on email at info@AmericanResumeService.com. By the way, they specialize in military resumes. So if you have if you've got military experience, or you're freshly coming out of the military, or just home recently, this is a perfect opportunity for you to. They've got 20,000 people employed in from clientele over the last 25 years. So they got to be doing something right. All right, make sure that you visit our friends over at BatteryStation.com and also our friends over at Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is a great nationwide chain of restaurants, but the Pizza Hut here in West Plains is the number one place in the nation, and I'll tell you why. The manager of that particular restaurant has come to us and said, normally we don't do things out of the nationwide chain thing, but I want to support this program. And so he has essentially done that, and he supports this radio program by directly advertising with us, and I can't say enough good things about them for that. If you have an opportunity to, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you have reduced lunches, and on Tuesday night, kids under 12 eat free. It's family night. Take advantage of it. Visit our friends over at BatteryStation.com, or you can call them at 417-257-7799. Visit our friends at AtlasSurvivalShelters.com, the best shelters in the nation. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Glad to have you on board with us this morning. I see a ton of you folks out there on the web. Very nice to see you. You're joining us in our third segment this morning. And we normally break the show into 4 different segments that we try to address whatever's happening currently in the news that day. And always we try to give you a different or a unique view or look at what's happening around us. We generally try to give you an opportunity to look at the news articles that the Ministry of Propaganda and the mainstream media feed to you every day, but we give you a different take on it. The goal is to have you exercise critical thinking skills to recognize when you're being manipulated, frankly, and that's all that this stuff is. You know, my son and I the other day were watching a program, a show on television, and I very, very rarely watch television. I use it as a news tool because I watch a lot of different news programs because I use them as fodder for this show, quite frankly, but I almost never watch regular television. Once in a great while, we'll watch a movie or something, and we were watching this show, and we have the ability to hit the pause button and put it on, pause for a moment. And I said to him after the first set of commercials, which I almost never watch because I never watch television except for news. And so, but right after that first set of commercials, the first one that came on, it struck me, it made me feel nauseous because it was so clear to me that I was being manipulated, that I was being fed a group of, a pack of lies, and that their attempts were so, it's once you know it, and once you notice it, and once you see it, you can never go back to looking at it in the same way again. It's like, it's like looking into the trees. And someone says, "Do you see that there?" And you're looking and you're looking and you can't see it. And they say, No. Up on top of that tree. Look right up there. You can see it. You're in the zoo and it's a monkey or something, right? And suddenly you see the monkey. And now you wonder, how could I have not seen it before? And then you look away and you go back and you look for it and instantaneously you find it. Because your eye now knows where to look. See, your brain works the same way, folks. When you understand and you see the manipulation for what it is, you'll never be fooled again. You have to train yourself, however, to find it, to see it. You ever look at one of those pictures where there's a picture within the picture? And if you stare at it long enough, suddenly it just comes jumping right out at you. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I've been staring at this thing for 5 minutes. And suddenly my left brain, right brain did some shift and boom, all of a sudden I see it. And now it's as plain as the nose on my face. I can't believe it took me that long to find it. And even if you put it down and pick it up a moment or two later, you can still find it every time. Your brain has to have a little bit of training, folks. And the best way to do that is to find the missing, think of the Where's Waldo game. Find him in every picture. There's propaganda in everything that you're told. That's not paranoia. That's truth and reality. Because the media, even if they're not propagandizing you for the benefit of government, they're propagandizing you for the benefit of profit or the sake of ratings. Irrespective, though, you're being manipulated. And you're being manipulated by everything you see and read and hear. If it's written, if it's on a television, If it's coming out of the radio, listen, even this show, to a certain extent, I bring to you stories over and over and over. I don't want you to take what I say verbatim, and I don't want you to adopt my opinion. I want you to formulate your own. If you ever call me up and say, hey, Mike, I agree with you 100%, I'm going to say, stop right there. You shouldn't agree with me 100%. You should do your own due diligence and your own homework and make sure that what you believe, you have good, legitimate, valuable reasons to believe. I know it takes time. I know most people don't have the time to sit down there and look through all of these articles and read all this information and study it. I get that. But to be honest with you, it's your future that's at stake. It's your future. Aren't you willing to invest that time in your future? Your wife, your husband's, your children's children's? The nation that gave you all that you have right now, that you are spending your time on instead of focusing on solving these problems? And becoming aware of them? I can already see some of the email I'll get. What do you mean solving these problems? We can't solve anything. I beg to differ. We can solve this. But we have to do it together, and we have to do it with our eyes wide open. And that means we put aside all the division, all the nonsense, all the ideology, all the rhetoric and the nonsense that you think you believe in and you've been told. Stop thinking that it matters. It's all just hype to get you to be divided. Because divided, we cannot win. Divided, we cannot win. This segment, we're going to cover the White House, who outs its own head of station for the CIA in Afghanistan. They blew this guy's cover by putting his name on a list. And the White House press office is unaware that allegedly that they circulated this guy's name. Now, some of the White House journalists who are in the pool, and one in specificity from the Washington Post, he caught it and he went back to them and he said, "Are you sure that you wanted to release this guy's name?" And they were like, "Yeah." Well, wait, maybe not. I mean, folks, you know what? I don't know whether it was on purpose or it was by mistake. I don't know whether it was ineptitude. I don't know whether it was done intentionally. I don't know whether it was hapless stupidity. But I do know one thing. Out of all the White Houses that we have lived through in our time, and all the White Houses before, this particular White House is the Keystone Cops of political history. Just absolutely disgusting and shameful behavior. You know, the ineptitude, even lefties now are coming out and saying this president is flat-footed, he's a bungler, he's disengaged, he's unconnected, he's not paying attention. You know why? Because he thinks he knows the end result. He thinks he knows. And maybe he does. Because if we don't wise up and shut this guy down and their agenda, maybe he will make it come to pass. I'll tell you why he's unengaged. I'll tell you why he is hapless and lackluster about the job. Because he knows that all these things that they allege they're trying to do, they're not. They know the end is here. They know that the end of our fiscal solvency, they know that the American people are no longer buying the lies. They see it too, you know. I mean, it's not just here. All over the world. I posted stuff up on our Facebook page this morning about how UKIP in the UK, which is the equivalent of their Tea Party, They kicked butt. Listen, the liberals in the English Parliament or the English MEPs, they lost every seat except for like one or two. I mean, we're not talking about a defeat. We're talking about a rout. And the Tea Party in England, they call it UKIP, UKIP. They're the ones who did it. Now, while they were able to do that over there, we, on the other hand, and we on the other hand, basically, are going to reelect 90% of the traitors who have run this nation into the ground via corruption and bribery and treason. How do I know that? Well, the fact that Tea Party candidates can't get a leg up going around the country in different areas. I mean, we're seeing incumbents being... Why is it that everybody knows Congress sucks, but 90% of them are going to get reelected? If you can't figure out why the nation is such a mess, look at who the nation keeps voting back into orifice. Oops, did I say orifice? I meant office. The French National Front. Now, the media is calling them an ultra-right wing, extremist right wing. Well, you have to realize, in France, they've gone so far to the left that if you just call for some kind of government monitoring or you call for a balanced budget, you're an extreme right-winger. I mean, don't forget, Hollande is the guy who just passed a 75% tax on millionaires, okay? So take it with a grain of salt when they call them extreme right-wingers. Now, even the UKIP party, and I can't speak well enough about the French National Front to say what their political beliefs are. They have made some very anti-Semitic remarks and some things in the past, and I don't know where they stand today on it, and I don't even care. What I'm trying to do is draw a picture for you, and here's what it is. The world's sick and tired of tyranny. They're sick and tired of being run by a small little clique of oligarchs. And it's not just here. It's everywhere. It's not even limited just to the Western world. It's the Muslim countries. Look at Egypt. 30-some-odd million out of 80-some-odd million, almost half the nation, marched on that capital and threw the Muslim Brotherhood out, to the chagrin and disgust of our country. Huh? Yeah. See, we have, for all intents and purposes, become an Orwellian police state. In fact, there was a great article in Liberty Crier this morning by Lieutenant William Lawler. He's a 12-year military intelligence vet of the U.S. Army and the PA Army National Guard. He's a history, a criminal justice, and a mathematics professor. He's a professional business operations and education consultant. And he wrote this piece, and I'll read it to you briefly because I thought it was very good. The United States is, in fact, an Orwellian tyranny that merely chooses not to implement full tyrannical measures. It not only makes this decision because it does not yet have sufficient power to completely control the masses, i.e., we have not been made sufficiently docile, nor sufficiently dumbed down, fattened, sickened, or disarmed. When the government does have that power, and it will soon enough, it may well be too late to effectively resist. During a speech on May 23rd at the National Defense University at Fort McNair in Washington, D.C., in which Barack Obama was called to the carpet by Medea Benjamin, one of his employers, for his actions relating to men who are illegally imprisoned by the United States government in Gitmo, he stated, "Now, even after we take these steps, one issue will remain. just how to deal with those Gitmo detainees who we know have participated in dangerous plots or attacks, but who cannot be prosecuted. For example, because the evidence against them has been compromised or is not admissible in a court of law. But once we commit to a process of closing Gitmo, says Obama, I am confident that this legacy problem can be resolved consistent with our commitment to the rule of law. End quote. Think about this. The man who claims to be the President of the United States has just admitted that he is refusing to order the immediate release of prisoners that the government admits it has no evidence against. Yet in the same breath, Obama states that the government, quote, knows, end quote, the men have committed crimes. How can the government know that somebody has committed a crime, yet simultaneously have no evidence against them? And worse yet, how can it continue to unlawfully imprison that person? How can Obama announce that these men are guilty when they have never been found guilty in a court of law? Barack Obama has just announced to the world that he has the authority to unilaterally declare that someone is or is not guilty of a crime. The executive branch of government has now officially partially assumed the proper and constitutionally delegated role of the judicial branch. Also notice the Orwellian doublespeak, as he claims that it is possible to deal with this issue consistent with the rule of law, while simultaneously violating the same rule of law. The two practices are mutually exclusive and completely incompatible, yet he states that they work together. This is a whole new level of newspeak and doublespeak. Non-evidence is actually evidence. Tainted evidence is reliable evidence. Illegal evidence is legal evidence. Violating the law is upholding the law, and usurping the Constitution is adhering to the rule of law. This is the definitive definition of newspeak and tyranny. Also, let us not gloss over the fact that Obama refers to this situation as a legacy problem, in a clear attempt to insulate or insinuate that he holds no responsibility for and is in no way accountable for this unlawful practice. Indeed, George W. Bush implemented this unconstitutional practice, but Obama continued it, despite his crystal clear campaign promises to the contrary. From the moment that Obama took office and failed to order the immediate civilian trial or the release of every prisoner, he not only proved himself to not be a man of his word, he also immediately assumed culpability and responsibility for the actions of his predecessor, and for every day thereafter that those human beings are denied their inalienable and God-given rights. In legal parlance, this is called conspiracy after the fact, and it is a criminal offense. I'm not going to take the time to read you this whole article. I want you to go out there and read it, though. Find it on americasvoicenow.org. You can find it on facebook.com, or you can find it on Patriot FB. And I posted it up. The title is simple. The United States is, in fact, an Orwellian tyranny. Obama statements at the National Defense University. The reason I say these things, and the reason I think it's important that you understand that, is because, and he makes a good point. Now, personally, I'm not so sure I agree that these people have the inalienable right. If they fired on Americans, they've, to a certain extent, given up their right to freedom. But again, his point is, then you've got to have the proof of that. And if you don't, then you cannot stand there. See, this reminds me when Obama sat there in front of O'Reilly at the beginning of the Super Bowl, and he was interviewed there. And he said, there is not a smidgen of corruption at the IRS. And the IRS hadn't even been fully investigated. It still hasn't. So where did he come off saying that? How does he make a unilateral definitive statement like that and declare something to be legal or illegal or whatever when there's no empirical proof? He has no evidence to state something other than that. And if he's been shown evidence that says that the IRS is not guilty of unlawfully using its power and authority to injure and damage ideological enemies, then he has an obligation to show us that evidence, doesn't he? You see, I want you to recognize that there's a dichotomy between what these people say and what they do. You cannot have it both ways. You either follow and believe in the rule of law, or you don't. It's that simple, but you can't have it both ways. The truth is that the United States government, the Supreme Court, and frankly, they're guilty of judicial tyranny at this point. The administrative or the executive is guilty of it, as we well know, by going outside the boundaries of the office, number one, and two, the permitted limits of the office. And we know that Congress has betrayed us, oh my goodness, so many times and so far over the top that there's nothing left to even question, folks. You see, it's not that there's not a smidgen of corruption in the IRS. It's that there's not a smidgen of government where there isn't corruption. All right. Karzai, by the way, dissed Obama, and I can't even get into that because you know what? It's so obvious that the world looks at us, and I mean, Iran's Ayatollah, by the way, came out and he said that jihad will continue until America is no more. Death to America. This is their holy leader, and I got to tell you, this is over the illicit nuclear program, and John Kerry should be removed as Secretary of State, and Barack Obama, for that matter, for insisting on this deal, which is now blowing back in our face by their own admission. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the eye doctor in San Antonio who's stepping up to do his part and do the right thing by vets in this country, and the 28, and I want to use that as an example of what each of us can do. And also the 28 vets who were discovered to be sitting in a morgue in L.A. County for 18 months. You see, this just goes to show you how systemic and cancerous and viral this disease is. It's not limited to one hospital or two hospitals or anything else. This is a nationwide problem, and there is no solution for it other than the complete and total and utter removal of all the people involved. Mutiny Bounty. Pound Mutiny Bounty. Remember that phrase, folks. Pound Mutiny Bounty. That's the hashtag for the IRS bounty, where $1 million bounty is being paid to anyone who will come out and whistleblow on these scum. It's a crowd-funded source, so you can go to irsbounty.com. That's irsbounty.com, and you can make a donation there. I'm suggesting $5, and if 20 million American patriots did that, we'd have a $100 million pool, and we'd be able to effectively get 100 people with a $1 million bounty each to come forth and rat with relevant evidence that implicates treason in our own federal government. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle this last issue, and we're going to talk to you about this awesome doctor in San Antonio who's just kicking butt. Kudos to this doctor. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Tell you, there are true heroes in America, folks. And I'm going to introduce you to one of them today. You know, I posted this up on our Facebook page yesterday. And I want you I want you to go out to our Facebook page or our website, and I want you to get a hold of this story, and then I want you to share it nationwide. But I don't want you to just share it and say how cool this is. I want you to share it with the intent that you say to everyone else, what can you do to match this? What business are you in that you can step up and say, I'll step in and do my part to help protect and defend and provide for these veterans that we have so brusquely abused? Stone Oak Ophthalmology and Dr. Kristen Story Held have stepped up to the plate. They posted up on Facebook the other day. If you are a South Texas veteran who cannot access the VA for needed eye surgery or ophthalmic or visual problems, please friend me on Facebook and message me, or call my office at 210-490-6759, or contact me at stoneoakeyes.com. That's stone like a rock, oak like a tree, eyes like those two things in your head that you try not to believe. stoneoakeyes.com. Why? Because she goes on to say, and I mean, I got to tell you, this is touching. She goes on to say, I cannot sit by while our brave men and women lose their vision or stroke, or worse yet, or worse, sitting on some secret waiting list. This is on my heart, and I'm not worthy, but I'm humbled to care for you great Americans. She says, I don't know the extent of the access problem in South Texas, but I'll just start and end each clinic serving a vet who cannot get the medical care they need at the VA. I can see someone at 7:45 tomorrow morning. Just let me know. I believe in the Hippocratic Oath and that all patient info is 100% sacred and private. We've got this. In honor of those who went before us, happy Memorial Day. Well, let me tell you something. One, what really blows me away about it is not the fact that she's offering. That's stunning. But the urgency that she applies to it when she says, I can see someone at 7:45 tomorrow morning. You know why that matters? Because she's saying everything stops. And I am willing to have the courage of my convictions and do what needs to be done. And I'm willing to do it right here, right now. At 7:45 tomorrow morning, who needs my help? The example that is providing for you, and I don't care what business you're in, I don't care what you do. If you're not in a business where you can help, if you're not in the medical community, I get it. What you can do is you can call Dr. Story Held, Kristen. I'm going to call her Kristen because I don't know how to, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name right, and I don't know whether it's hyphenated or what. But I can tell you this. You can call Dr. Kristen and you can say to her, you know what? I'm willing to throw $50 or $100 or whatever it is to your organization to help cover the cost. And if you can't do it with her, then find some clinic in your area that will do the same. In fact, if you are not part of a medical community that can step up and help a vet, then ask yourself this. What's to stop you from going to somebody in a clinic in your community? Someplace where you know someone in the facility, you know someone in the office. Maybe you don't even know someone in the office. Maybe you and a couple of friends get together and you say, you know what? Let's approach all the urgent care clinics and all the small clinics. You don't have to go to the big hospitals. There's too much paperwork and crap with them. They'll figure out a way to bury it in bureaucracy. So go to the smaller clinics. Go to the local doctors in your community and say, How many of you are willing to step up and see 1 or 3 or 5 patients a day until this crisis gets resolved? How many of you? Well, I can't do anything. I'm only one person. Stop right there. You just got a mission assigned and appointed. Now, what are you going to do with it? Like Dr. Held, you can have the courage of your convictions and go knock on a doctor's door and say, you don't know me, but I'm going to ask you to do your nation a favor today. When you get a list of these doctors, go to your local newspaper and put their name up there. Put some flyers around in all the shopping centers and in all the other stores. If you're a vet and you've been waiting on a list, here's a number you can call. You see, one of the things we keep hearing is, well, charity should always be a community-based thing. Then we wouldn't need to have this massive social welfare state. You're right. We wouldn't need everybody on welfare and food stamps if our communities did it. Now, I get it. We've all been trained out of that. And frankly, at this stage in the game, we've all been taxed out of the ability to do it locally. We're paying so much to the government to do it. Then, of course, they misuse it and scoop most of it for themselves. And like most charities, 10% of it, if they're lucky, gets to the actual recipient who deserves it or who it was intended for. But this is something that you can do, and you can play an active role, and it won't cost you anything. Time, a couple of phone calls, maybe a few office visits that you can't bill for. No paperwork, none necessary. Just ask that they bring their DD-214 or their veteran's ID card. Don't keep a record. Don't submit anything to the insurance company. Just do the right thing. Dr. Kristen Held, she's certified by the American Board of Ophthalmology. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Ophthalmology and a member of the American Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgery. She's a graduate of the University of Texas, Phi Beta Kappa. She was named Outstanding Student, apparently, that year. She received her MD degree from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. She specializes in cataractive and refractive surgery, including LASIK. Their office is called Stone Oak Ophthalmology Center. And she's not alone there. There's also another doctor there called Dr. Allison Young. If you cannot participate in any other way, and you can't think creatively because you've been so indoctrinated into never stepping outside of your box of comfort, then the worst that you can do, the one thing that you might do to help yourself and help this situation is to pick up the phone and call 210-490-6759 and just say thank you for doing the right thing. Can I throw $50 at you? Can I mail you a check for $20? Maybe they don't need it. I'm sure they do, but who knows? See, what I'm trying to show you, America, is that there are solutions, but we've got to start thinking creatively outside the box, and we must take action now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not if Congress doesn't fix it, not if the media doesn't get the word out. Now. Now. Today's the day. Don't wait. Don't even think, You all have seen me post that post up on our Facebook page. Number one thing you bring to a gunfight is a gun. And the rule number 2 is if you ain't shooting, you better be moving. In this case, it's the same thing. Shoot and move. 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 Move. Do something. Every one of you has an individual opportunity to take a leadership role. I don't care if you're leading 1 or you're leading 10 million. You have a role to play. And you have a leadership position that can change this situation to our benefit. Dr. Held has taken her role as leader, and she's acting upon it. God bless her for having the courage of her convictions to stand up and say, you know what, maybe I can't afford it. Maybe this is going to, what happens if I get too many phone calls? Okay. Then maybe she can contact somebody else in the ophthalmology association and say, hey, guys, I got overflow here. Can somebody else step in? I got 5 guys that are in dire need. I'm not an eye doctor. I'm a dentist. Boom. Perfect. I get it. All you sell is your time, and all you sell is your skill. Put some up for the right reasons. Put some up for a good cause, and this would be it. You know something? In her bio, she has here that Dr. Held was named in 2009 the Pillar of Responsibility by the Northside Education Foundation. Boy, does that name fit her or what? The Pillar of Responsibility. She's a physician advocate for the responsible patient-centered healthcare reform, involved in preserving the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship and the noble profession of medicine. She serves on a task force of physicians who have actually read the newly passed Health Care Act and has presented her findings in Washington, D.C. Her comments have been heard and read on the Sean Hannity Show and the Cavuto Show, as well as locally on their station 550 KTSA. She's committed to providing each patient with the best possible individualized, innovative medical care available. She invites you to visit the website Docs4, that's the number 4. I'm sorry, Docs for Patient Care. That's DOCS 4 patientcare.org. There you can get more information regarding the Health Care Act and what doctors around the country are doing to preserve the doctor-patient relationship. Their mission statement at Doc for Patients Care is, we are an organization of concerned physicians committed to the establishment of a healthcare system that preserves the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, promotes quality of care, supports affordable access to all Americans, and protect patients' freedom of choice. We urge patients and physicians to get involved in order to preserve the good qualities of our healthcare system, address the problems, while preventing its bureaucratic destruction. Wow. Wow. See, she doesn't just win the title of Pillar of Responsibility. She's exemplifying that, because she's stepping up to the plate as a leader to do her part. You all have heard me talk about this leadership role over and over and over and over. Here's a perfect, living, breathing example. And now I'm throwing down the gauntlet of challenge to you. What can you do I want you to have a conversation with yourself today. What can I do creatively to make a difference? Let me think outside the box. Doesn't have to cost you money. I don't care if you're a contractor. Put it out there. Is there a guy who's a member of the VA who's got cancer or something like that, and maybe they just need a door frame hung? Maybe their family needs a little help fixing the front porch. Doesn't have to cost you money. Doesn't have to be something where you drop everything else. It can be in what you do every day. If you're a plumber, get the word out there. I've looked at some vets who are living in some really deplorable conditions. How many of them would put their hands together and say, praise God that somebody came and fixed our sink? Help them put in a new water heater. Help them fix the garage door. Maybe got their car running a little bit better and gave it a tune-up and an oil change. The question is, what are you going to do? And I mean today. You see, Dr. Story, Dr. Held, Dr. Kristen Held, she didn't turn around and say, if you're a vet and you got a problem, give us a call, we'll see what we can do. She said, if you're a vet, you can get on and friend me on Facebook and send me an instant message. Or you can call my office, or you can call me and you can contact me off my website. But I can see someone at 7:45 tomorrow morning. That's the difference. I can see someone tomorrow morning. Maybe you've got to start your work a little early. Maybe you've got to get out there a little bit earlier than you normally would and swing by that vet's house and take a look. And even if you can't fix it right then and there, at least you know what you need, and maybe you can go get the supplies. And then you can swing back and on your lunch hour, sweat in that hot water heater. Maybe get that air conditioner fixed. Pick up the car. Drive it over to your shop. Get the work done. It's not just this medical issue, guys. It's more than that. I know our government has absolutely failed. Does that mean that we continue to leave it in their hands? Or do we do something about it? I mean, we can sit here and we can say, the government's left all these people destitute without care. And we've already paid through our taxes, so we're just going to scream and yell. Or you can say, clearly the government's dropped the ball, and it's up to us to step up to the plate and do what we've got to do. If you're a hospital administrator, a nurse, get a committee together and say, what can we do as a community to say, we're going to take care of our own vets right here in our town, right here in our community. Maybe you're an orthopedist. Maybe you have an X-ray lab. Maybe you can do MRIs. It doesn't matter what it is. Every little bit counts. And if you're none of those things and you say, heck, I don't know anything about medical, then okay. Contact every doctor's office that you can find in the phone book and say, I'm putting together a spreadsheet because I'm a good organizer. And I don't know a doggone thing about medical, but I'm willing to stand here and coordinate and make sure that the vets know who they can go to. So, Dr. So-and-so, can I put you down to see 2 patients a day? It's up to you, folks. We can sit here and we can snivel and whine and cry. We can show outrage. But if we do nothing to correct the problem, then we are the problem. Dr. Kristen Held, thank you. Because if you're the first impetus, and maybe you're not the only one, and if I don't know about others that are out there doing this, I'm certainly not taking anything away from you. But you I heard about, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for having the courage of your convictions, for doing the right thing, for being a pillar of responsibility when everybody else was silent. I appreciate you. And I know that there will be plenty of men and women who will come through your doors that will echo that sentiment. If you're in the San Antonio area and you need help, in fact, she says the South Texas. So I'm not really familiar enough with South Texas, but here's the phone information again. Area code 210-490-6759. Or it's Stone Oak Eyes. Stone Oak Eyes. Dr. Kristen Held is seeing patients. She's doing her part. She's taken that responsibility, that mantle as the pillar of responsibility, and she's running with it like a leader. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. If there's any way that you can help, then I strongly encourage you to get creative. If you want me to try to help coordinate it, maybe that's something that I can do. You can email me. You know how to reach me, mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. But this isn't something that should be done on a national basis. This has to be local. There's people hurting now. They need help now. We can't wait for these buffoons in Washington to step up and do the right thing. They need your help. Will you take the challenge? Dr. Kristen Story Held has. And she should be a perfect example for every one of us. And it's not just limited to medical. Be creative. Think outside the box. If you're a farmer, maybe they need some fresh milk. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. You can communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Please visit our website at americasvoicenow.org. Please jump to our Facebook page. You can get there by going to facebook.com/America's Voice Now. You can find us on YouTube, where you can see every program that we do. We've got almost 1,000 videos up there. You can get to them by going to youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You'll have a great day. Thank you very much for joining with us and riding with us today. Greatly appreciate you. If you want to communicate with me directly, it's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Good day and God bless.